frequently and to make our whole program look good. And Brooke had an idea a while back. She said, we know we've got SEC faculty members that have and own businesses. Why don't we seek them out? There's more than we know. Let's seek them out and see if they would be interested in speaking at our coffee. So I thought, you know what, that is a great idea. So Brooke developed a cool graphic and we sent it out to our SEC staff members early in the week, and we had several respond and indicate, yes, I have a business and I would be interested. And that's how we got our speaker today. So I'm thrilled that Elena Newman could join us today. She owns a business called Editing Made Easy, and she has a PhD in psychology, teaches, what's that?
Almost. Not
Almost.
quite.
Okay. Almost has a PhD in psychology, teaches psychology here at the college, and formerly taught some pharmacy tech classes. So I'm going to turn it over to Elena, and she can describe her business and how it got to be.
Good afternoon or morning, whatever time it is. Morning, I guess. I work nights also, so it's like I never know what time it is. My name is Elina Newman. I've been at SEC since 2008, so I'm fairly seasoned. My business kind of came from a background. I'm an immigrant from the Middle East. I'm here. I was a refugee. So when I actually say my name, like the reason my name came about is because my dad couldn't spell. That's actually a legit thing. It's technically probably supposed to be E-L-E-N-A, but whatever. So I immigrated here when I was 10 years old. We came here for a better life. I went through high school. I went to Everett Elementary. I had my ESL teacher who poured her heart and soul into my education, made sure that I was basically thrown into everything English that I possibly could be thrown into. She and I are still in touch. She is one of my best friends. We go out to coffee. She is kind of like a second mom to me, third mom to me, a mom to me. She's kind of been the push for me as far as success, as far as what teachers should look like, and being an advocate for me when I couldn't even advocate for myself. I knew zero English when I came to the United States, absolutely none. So at 10 years old, I had to start from the beginning. In 6th grade, I transferred to Lincoln Christian School. I graduated as a salutatorian of my class. And then I went to UNL. I got I was on a 5-year plan. I was going to be a doctor because everybody where I'm from, that's what the kids are supposed to be doing. They're supposed to be doctors. And that's what I heard my entire life. My aunt is a doctor. I've dabbled in healthcare ever since I can remember. I realized at UNL, however, that chemistry was just not my thing. No matter where I went, chemistry just kind of followed me. So I did pre-med, I did pre-pharmacy, I tried, and I just could not. After Organic 1, I was like, I'm done, not doing it anymore. But in the meantime, what I realized is I had a lot of psychology classes that I've taken just haphazardly. I took a lot of sociology classes and a lot of English classes. So I ended up graduating with a major in psychology with a minor in sociology and English. So I double minored. Unbeknownst to me. Meanwhile, I was working at Walgreens. That's kind of where I got my pharmacy interest, and I've been there for 17 years. I'm an overnight tech, so anytime Friday night or Sunday night, I'm out there working in the pharmacy field. So I know a little bit about pharmacy, which is how I got started at SEC. So my business kind of came haphazardly. Meanwhile, being a faculty at within pharmacy, in the pharmacy program, I got approached by a couple of publishers in attending conferences, specifically the Pharmacy Tech Educators Council conference. And so I was approached by a lot of publishers who were trying to but they were trying to promote their pharmacy technician series and needed people who were working in the field to be content experts. So that's kind of how I got into it. I initially did the editing and consulting for free because I didn't realize that it was a thing. And then I finally got told, we can't have you do this for free. We're going to have to pay you. And I was like, okay, fine. If you have to twist my arm, you know, whatever. Send me a contract. I'll look at it, sign it, whatever you need. So the business actually came up haphazardly, and I actually had to create a business because of the funding part of it and the income that was being generated as a result of the business. So it is it's not a consistent income. It just kind of comes and goes with the demand. And it's not my bread and butter. It's just something I do for fun. It's something I do at home when I'm not grading papers, I guess. So over time, my work my business is spread through word of mouth. I don't advertise. I don't do any major advertising other than LinkedIn. I'm on LinkedIn, I'm on Facebook. But I've due to my work, I have repeat customers. I've worked with Paradigm, Pearson, McGraw-Hill. I've worked with, you name it, the big ones, and then also the small ones, like Learning Mate, and you know, other little ones, NPTA, Nebraska Pharmacy Tech Association. So I worked with a lot of big and little publishers who heard about me through someone else. So a lot of my business is spread through word of mouth. I've edited dissertations. I've edited, and apparently I'm ruthless. So I guess that's what I'm known for. I've edited a lot of different pieces of writing. So in elementary school, when I transferred to Lincoln Christian, my 6th grade, so apparently my teachers are all have food last names. So my elementary teacher was Mrs. Cherry. My 6th grade teacher was Mrs. Rice. So Mrs. Rice actually recently approached me and wanted me to help edit her biography that she's going to pass down to her children. And so that has been my biggest success, is to be able to edit a former teacher's life story. And so that makes me super, it humbles me because she and Mrs. Cherry have been very influential in me developing my English skill sets. Again, unbeknownst to me, apparently. So I also create original content. I take content that publishers give me and they say, create a project. And so I'll create a project. Or they'll tell me, can you write some test questions? I'll create test questions. Or they'll give me a manuscript and say, can you please edit this or proofread this? I'll edit it and proofread this. Or I'll read it and proofread it. So I have about 4 projects going on right now, which is the most I've had at any one time, which is great, but it can be overwhelming sometimes. So I just take it a piece at a time, and kind of just go with the flow, keep my customers updated in terms of what I'm doing, where I'm at. Communication is a very big thing to me. That's one thing that as a business owner, you have to be able to communicate. And sometimes the news is good and sometimes the news is bad, but regardless of what it is, I'm all about being honest and upfront in terms of costs that you're going to charge, in terms of your progress, in terms of all of that. Why I started, so in my attempt to discover myself back in high school, I wasn't exactly the most popular kid. I mean, come on. I was literally the only one in my class, my brother and I, in our school, the entire school, who were from another country. So let's just say I didn't make friends right away. Well, in fact, I never really made friends. So books were my friend. Education was my friend because that's kind of the culture I grew up in. Education is everything. And education specifically for women is not guaranteed. And so as a woman being able to go on and get my PhD, I am blessed. I count my blessings every day in the fact that I'm able to do that, because not a lot of people in where I'm from, not a lot of women where I'm from actually get that opportunity. So I've been dabbling in education my entire life. I was a straight A student. I loved books. I loved new books. I loved going to Barnes and Noble and just opening a book and smelling the new book. And so I'm constantly reading. I'm constantly improving myself. So in that process, I actually got involved in psychology because I wanted to understand myself and I wanted to understand other people, because I was in a different culture. I was struggling to blend the two cultures together. And so that's kind of how I got involved in psychology. And so I am in the dissertation phase. I've submitted my final manuscript to be approved by an academic reader. So hopefully, it'll get approved, and then I'll be able to defend my dissertation. So I also edit psychology textbooks. I also edit psychology content as far as the pharmacy tech content. So the passion for education has always been there. As a college student, I was a tutor with A+ or AZ tutoring. I was just an independent tutor for a long time, and then I kind of merged the tutoring into my editing program, or editing business, so to speak. And the editing business actually grew to be student and faculty support, pretty much. So it naturally grew to be bigger than what I thought it would be. Some of my clients are repeat. Some of my clients, like I said, hear about me through word of mouth. But that passion for education, that passion for, allowing people to kind of free their mind and to explore other opportunities, other thoughts, thought patterns. To my students, I describe myself as a devil's advocate. So I'll always bring up questions that kind of make them think, kind of make them analyze situations. I share a lot about my life, and then they share a lot about their life. So that's the passion that kind of keeps me going, is that passion for education, passion for learning. I am an achiever. I am a learner. That's in our little emotional intelligence 2.0 test that we took. My top 3 strengths are achiever, learner, and intellection. So they're all based around education, all based around the finer details, which is why I like that's why I love what I do. It's detail based stuff. Challenges I overcame, my own insecurity. I'm a functional introvert. This is not, and like I was telling Steve, I debated about doing this because, again, I'm not the one to kind of go out and kind of toot my own horn. I never was. That's why I don't advertise. But it kind of naturally has grown and developed into this thing. And one thing I would encourage people is to push outside of the boundaries of what they think they can handle, and try to keep pushing the walls farther and farther. And you'll find that you're capable of more than what you think you're capable of. And a lot of these opportunities kind of been handed to me. And it's all about what you do with the opportunities, not necessarily the opportunity itself. And so that's like my biggest takeaway from my life is take hold of every opportunity, because there's a reason why you're here or you're in this position. My initial trouble was growing my clientele. Like I said, my business kind of just haphazardly happened. But growth is always a thing. And it kind of, again, it happened naturally. I got on Facebook. I created a Facebook group. I shared it with my friends. My friends shared it. So I've gotten some clients out of that. Not that I asked my friends to share it, but I've helped my friends with a lot of their editing, whatever they needed to do for school. I have a couple of students at Doan. I have a couple of students at Concordia. I have a couple of students at various institutions who at different points will contact me to edit various things. So that's kind of, that's kind of where I'm at. The other thing I would encourage people is to not be afraid to take calculated risks. I'm all about calculated risks. I'm all about, making sure that what comes in is greater than what goes out. I was an assistant for a business. I was a DJ. I've done so many different things. in terms of like learning about the business world and how all that works. I've looked at, I use Quicken. I learned that on my own. I took a couple accounting courses just to figure out balance sheets, assets, liabilities, owner's equity, whatever. So I can like kind of sort of calculate my taxes and then take it over to an accountant and they either verify or not verify. So it's important as a business owner to be kind of fluid a little bit in almost in every area of your business, because that's your baby. And so you kind of have to understand, you don't have to necessarily be an expert, but you have to understand basic concepts. And just to make sure that, again, you are doing what you need to do and be a responsible business owner. So that is my spiel.
Well, thank you so much. I've got a couple questions for you, if you don't mind. Just out of my own curiosity, as an editor or proofreader, how do you charge? Is it by the word or page? And then also, I would imagine that you get some documents that are pretty well written and you don't have to do a lot. And then sometimes you get something horrible that you're basically rewriting. So how do you account for that in your pricing as well? And then when do you kind of cross into the border where maybe you're a ghostwriter instead of an editor?
So myself, I avoid ghostwriting opportunities because I don't, I can do a little bit, but I want the author's voice. I want that to come through. I don't like to create original content unless the person comes up to me right off the bat and says, that's what I want. I've written a couple of things like that, but I don't necessarily want to be the hidden writer underneath it all. I don't necessarily want that because I want the author's own voice to be in the writing. So I do very little with original content, but like I said, I do some, and I do want people to tell me that up front rather than here's a horrible draft, edit it for me, which in hindsight means rewrite the whole thing for me. And I have had publishers where I have actually been, and I'm brutally honest, I have actually handed a transcript back to an author and said, this is horrible. You need to rewrite it. Like it needs to be redone because I'm going to be robbing you in terms of monetary, of what I can make on this. And so I don't feel comfortable doing that. I feel very unethical about that. So that's the only one that I've ever had that was written so horribly that I was like, I can't ethically do this. Ones that are written really well, I just charge for just an investment in reading. I don't know, $20, $25, I guess. It depends on how long it is. Most of the stuff that I work with, the dissertation by far is the biggest piece that I've worked with other than textbooks. But like little stories or little papers for school, if a third party comes to me and says, like I have a couple of students that have gotten my name from actually some of their publisher friends, and they contact me because the publisher is too busy to help them. And so they'll contact me and say, well, can you edit this for me? If it is a small enough paper, I'll charge you just like $15, $20. But if it's a dissertation, it varies on what area we're looking at. If it's a simple area, it's $15, $20 a page. If it's biophysics or, something that is like completely just not my language and that I'm going to have to do some digging on, it may be $45 to $50 a page. So the range is the same, the range is kind of all over the place. And I give the client a price right up front and I stick to that price. And so that's kind of how I handle that. Did I answer the questions?
Yes, very much. Prior to you speaking today, I kind of did some digging around on the internet, and I really hadn't thought about doctoral dissertations much because I never wrote one. But, evidently you must have to invest some money into your dissertation, or most people must, to to engage professional proofreaders or editors, and that was a surprise to me. I did not realize that.
Yeah, and actually, doctoral schools. Here I go into the doctoral program thinking, oh, this is great because I'm an editor. This is going to be great. And my dissertation chair is like, yeah, you can farm this out. Somebody can run numbers for you. Somebody can do editing for you. And I'm like, what? But yeah, people will charge good money to edit your 100-page dissertation. They'll make $500 off of you real easy.
Other questions? Come on, John, you never are quiet. Come on now.
Oh, you're muted. There you are.
There I am. Sorry. Maybe I missed it. What is the name of your business?
Editing Made Easy.
Editing Made Easy. Okay.
And that's what I originally started as, but it's evolved to more than just editing at this point. So I might need to change my name eventually.
Besides writing and editing, what's your greatest passion?
I'm actually a ballroom dancer. So my husband and I are actually going to a competition this weekend. 90 heats, 1 solo in Omaha.
Really?
Yes, my husband and I met on the dance floor. So I have never danced a day in my life. And 4 years ago, I had a former student of mine who invited me to her wedding at a ballroom. And I signed up then and there, and I competed in my first competition 2 months later.
There's a good question, okay?
There you go.
Learn something new.
There you go.
Well done.
That's awesome. Other questions?
So Elena, do you normally just work in the education field, or do you work such with authors of books and whatnot? I was discussing, I had coffee with a friend this week, and we're both working on publishing books. So do you work with other people outside of the education, or just, like the dissertations or the pharmaceuticals or whatnot?
Anything and everything. It's just so happened that my clientele have been in education mostly, but it's not all I do. Like I said, I'm editing my elementary teacher's biography right now. So, so she's writing a biography for her children, and grandchildren actually. So that's my.
In that case, are you working with a company such as selfpublishing.com, or are you going to a local publishing company, or what are you doing with her, since it's such a small quantity?
Yeah, so basically what we're talking about right now is just the editing part. They just want to finalize it, and they want to make sure that the transcript is ready to go. And then the client wants to look, he wants me to, or her husband, wants me to do some research on publishing companies, small publishing companies that will publish some of the smaller pieces like that. Mm-hmm. So we've talked about a couple of ones here. Sandhills Publishing is in town, and then there's a couple of other small ones that we're going to look into. But as far as like talking publishing companies yet, we're not there yet. I'm working on grammar, proofreading, beautifying, fonts, design, like layout, that kind of thing. And I'm working with them. And then once I'm done with my part, we're going to meet and we're going to talk about some of the discrepancies I found and some of the things that will need to be clarified. And then I'll do a final run through and read it as if, it was a final product to make sure it flows.
Well, you might check out Chandler Bolt's selfpublishing.com, and it's basically, I think it's KDP Publishing, and you just send them the edited, you can get a proof of it, and then you go in and you can order. They publish per order, so they do all the packing, shipping, and whatever, and then they send them a royalty check. So you don't have hundreds of books sitting around in your garage or wherever. So,
okay, what was that company?
Selfpublishing.com, and it's Chandler Bolt.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you.
Other questions?
I'm curious if your business has been affected positively or negatively by COVID.
Well, I would say positively, because I would say this is a period of time where a lot of people are bored. Like my elementary school teacher, she finally decided to wrap up her biography because there's nothing else to do. So I don't know. We're kind of getting into a wave of publishers kind of making changes in their textbooks. So fall is a pretty busy time for me in terms of editing because they're kind of going through edits and it's on like a 3 to 4 year basis. So the majority of what I'm doing right now is working with publishers and that one client that's more of the outside of education. But yeah, fall is usually busiest. COVID, like I said, COVID, I would say positively impacted my business. I hardly ever have 4 projects going at once. But yeah, and then writing my own dissertation and editing my own dissertation. That's a job in and of itself. I pay myself.
Any other questions? I have another one for you, just instructor to instructor. You teach some psychology courses, so you assign a paper, you get your students to turn their papers in. Is it a struggle for you, since you do editing and proofreading, if someone submits a paper that is absolutely full of grammar errors and spelling errors and it's written poorly? I've always struggled as an instructor. Okay, the topic is not writing, it is entrepreneurship perhaps. And so do I take points off for something that's horribly written? I'm not, part of me says, well, you're not doing them any favors by letting them turn in work that is barely legible. But anyway, I'd love to hear your thoughts on it.
So one of the things I always tell my students is part of psychology is communication, verbal, nonverbal. Part of entrepreneurship is communication. You have to communicate with your clients. So you could always tie writing into any discipline because any discipline requires communication. And as an instructor, I do offer my students free editing. And I tell them, if you give me a week's worth of time, I will edit your paper for you free of charge. This is what I charge normally. And so once my students actually are done being my students, I don't stop that. They're my students for life, and I will edit things. I don't ever charge my students for editing. So they can send me stuff when they're going through their PhD. And it's a conflict of interest for me. I don't do it for money for my students. I do it as a way to give back and to encourage them to pursue more education. So it's kind of I guess you could call it a volunteer thing. Like I said, I didn't start this business with intent of making money. It was all about, promoting education, promoting learning about oneself, kind of exploring, expanding your mind. So when students do hand in papers that are poorly written, I am a little harder on them because they have a teacher who's willing to edit them for them. And if you don't take the time, yes, I'm going to take points off because I've offered to do this for you. Also, a lot of my assignments are arranged in sections. So they have to submit the first section, then the second section, and the third section, and I edit it all throughout the process. So if they don't take my feedback into consideration, and it's not actually feedback, it's you're going to change it, you have to change it. I do take off points for that because I spend time and effort, editing their writing for them. So that's all incorporated, and I'm all about APA format. I give them a template. We go through it in class. I Zoom with them on the weekends, at night, whenever. So they have the resources. So I do factor that into their grading as well. Because they have a resource. They have somebody that is willing to do that for them. Furthermore, I encourage my students to get on Grammarly. That is a godsend.
I was going to ask you about that. Okay.
Love Grammarly. I can't say enough about Grammarly, and you can have it on your internet browser, in your email, in your wherever. So, and sometimes the suggestions do not make sense. They are not correct. So you have to know a thing or two about grammar and spelling. However, it's a good starting point. And if you turn that thing on and it gives you like 174 errors, you can go through and at least iron out 90 of them.
Yeah.
What was the website again?
It's Grammarly.com.
Spell Grammarly.
Yeah, Grammarly.
Okay, thank you.
I think they're up. It's 2 M's.
About
Grammar.
that. Okay, thank you.
Okay.
It is maddening, though. I get student work every day submitted to me that they haven't even run a spell check on.
Yeah.
And they're doing their assignment in Microsoft Word, for Pete's sake. So anyway.
I have a soft spot for specifically people who English is their second language.
Mm-hmm.
And so I tell students, hey, we need to meet, like, because, and I don't tell students my story. I don't necessarily always tell them my story. And so a lot of students will come to me and say, you don't understand what it's like to learn the English language. And that's where I go, okay, hold up.
Time out.
Let's talk about this. And so, we talk about, it is possible. It is, you have to put forth the work and the effort into it if you want to be good at anything, not just English grammar or spelling. So I do have a soft spot. English is a very difficult language to learn. I remember 10th grade or 10 years old, not learning how to speak, having to draw little pictures to try to go to the bathroom. And then when the teacher would tell me, yeah, we're going to have dirt cake. I'm like, we're going to what? What are we doing? I'm going to get in trouble from my mom. Like, dirt cake is not a thing. We don't eat dirt where I'm from. And it was like the little Oreo with the pudding with the little worm. I'm like, oh, got it. All over it. So, some things we take for granted, but it's something that it's part of our life. We have to learn how to deal with it.
Okay, well, I appreciate
Did you have
you.
a question?
I had a fun follow-up question. How do you feel about advertisements that use creative grammar, like a community college billboard that says, want to learn new skills with a number 2 and a Z? That's what I was thinking.
Oh. There's somewhere in town, I think it's on 27th and O Street, there's a restaurant billboard that has a misspell. Every time I drive by it, I'm like, oh. And my favorite story of that is I used to be an avid listener to Linkin Park. And here I am Googling Linkin Park, and I can't find Linkin Park. And I'm like, why can't I find Linkin Park? Well, it's misspelled. So I was just like, ooh.
Yep. Editing and proofreading is, you realize it's very important. I worked at a bank once where we had to throw out $20,000 worth of brochures that had a typo in them. So, yeah.
Can I just ask one quick question?
I was just at a restaurant where they actually switched their there was a restaurant that had a mistake on their menu, and I'm like, just an FYI, they didn't even realize it.
Yep.
It was a mistake. So
I'm always surprised at how many websites I go on and I'm reading whatever their thing's about, and that there's a typo. And I'm really conscious of that, I think, because I can't spell and I've made some mistakes and sent some stuff out or whatever. But that it'll be, in fact, especially if I know the people whose website I'm on, I'll call the executive director and say, oops.
yeah.
And the next time I go in, it's changed.
Yeah, there's the dance competition, the hosts of the competition. I went on their website and they didn't follow the I before E except after C. Oh boy. So I was just like, I emailed them. I'm like, on the homepage, here are the errors. On the competition page, here are the errors. And the guy's like, thank you. Are you competing? I'm like, yes, I am. Free editing for you.
Oh, funny.
Okay, any more questions?
I just had a quick question. Your feelings on unintentional plagiarism, like especially since so many sentences are being written every second, it's very difficult to have a totally original one. Because I remember when I was doing my master's and you go through like Check It or one of those things, it'd pull up from some obscure book saying that you plagiarized from something you've never seen, never heard of. And it seems like that's becoming a bigger problem as more and more stuff is digitized.
So a lot of times what I do is I give students 5 to 10% leniency. Okay, so I do use Turnitin, and I do share my story with them, how higher ed institutions are not at all, there's no leniency. And that was experienced with my dissertation where I used actually SCC's Turnitin check, and because I actually used to also take classes through SCC. So I used the SCC check and I made sure with the instructor it was okay that I reused content. That's another area that's kind of shady. Sometimes instructors don't like you to reuse content, but in this case it was fine because my paper was, my dissertation topic is actually close to what I've already done a lot of research on. And so the instructor was like, yeah, that's fine. So I actually submitted my paper, and then when he ran Turnitin, it showed up 100% plagiarized. Well, the SCC institution, he didn't read the name on the paper. It was my paper. So he locked my access to the course, reported me to the ethics committee, and I actually had to go through an appeal process to reverse that. And it took 2 weeks. I lost 2 weeks in that course, and it was instructor error, but I still had to deal with the consequence of that error. So I always give my students grace in terms of 5 to 10%, and then I actually open up the Turnitin product and look at it. You know, like what, you know, if it, like sometimes it counts the reference page as plagiarized. So I go through and like uncheck that so that it doesn't count anything crazy in there. So yeah, and again, my you know, my students who are not who are an immigrant population, plagiarism isn't a thing. It isn't a thing in the Middle East where I'm from. If anything's available, it's free to use. You can take it, you can manipulate it, you can use it, nobody cares. Here, where a lot of times students have a hard time understanding what plagiarism is. They don't know that it's copyrighted content. And so a lot of what I do in my classes is we talk about APA and we talk about why it's important to cite, because in the United States, there are copyright laws. And you know, again, higher ed institutions are very strict about that because somebody puts forth time and effort into creating this product. So yeah, that's how I handle that. I give them, and it's whatever you're comfortable with. I'm comfortable with 5 to 10%. It depends on the paper. Now, if it's an autobiography, they have to write, some of my classes, they have to add an autobiography. I'm sorry if any of that is plagiarized. Yeah. Very rarely is an autobiography plagiarized. But that one is kind of a smaller percentage than, let's say, a research paper about Erik Erikson.
Okay.
Perfect. Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Elena. We really appreciate your time. Your story is a fascinating one. I appreciate you being here today. We're out of time, so we're going to conclude our coffee for the day. I want to thank everybody who attended. I hope you'll join us next week to hear about the latest young people's group being started by LIBA, and Jeff Keipel will be part of that presentation. So thank you, everybody. We'll see you next week.
Bye-bye.